going to school. If you don't help your father out, he's going to die in prison. People, I'll tell you this. My dad did a lot of bad things in his life. So did I. I went to jail for a crime I was guilty of. But that particular crime that he's done all this time for, he was innocent of. My dad was no bank robber. I'll take that to my grave. I investigated that case thoroughly. It was the worst frame-up that I've ever seen. But what does that show you? This is what I tell the young people. The system's not always fair. You put your hand in the fire long enough, you're going to get burnt. You're going to put a bullseye on your back, they're going to keep coming at you. The best way to get rid of that stuff is to avoid it. Stay away from it. You're not going to beat the system. It's not a fair system all the time. It's the greatest system in the world, but it's not always fair. Get away from it. Okay? So I go see Dad in the penitentiary. Dad, I'm not going to school anymore. If I don't help you out, you're going to die in here. We got to prove this case is a frame-up, you know? He got mad. No, I want you to go to school. Don't get involved, blah, blah, blah. We went back and forth. I was a headstrong kid. He knew my mind was made up. I'll never forget. He kind of threw his hands up in the visiting room in Leavenworth. He said, okay, son. But if you're going to be on the street, you got to be on the street the right way. In his mind, the right way was to become a member of his life. Go home. Somebody's going to be in touch with you. Do whatever you're told. And he proposed me for membership in the life. Now, I want you to understand something. My dad didn't break anything down for me. He didn't say, this is what you got to do, this is what's required of you, this is the rules. He didn't say anything. That life is a secret life. You're not supposed to talk about the life with anybody outside of it. My dad, he's an old war horse. He wouldn't violate that policy. He wouldn't be his own son. He just knew I had it in me. Go home and do what you're told. That was it. And for me, anything you want, Dad, I didn't question him. I didn't say anything. Everything I knew about my dad's life, I knew from outside. I knew from the newspaper. I knew from other people. He never sat down and told me anything. But I loved my dad so much, I had blind faith in what he wanted me to do. Blind faith. So, no problem, Dad. Point me in the right direction. How many of you heard before that Christians are supposed to have blind faith? Don't ever challenge God. Okay? How dare you? Don't ever challenge the Bible. He's God. Well, I want to tell you this. When I came to Christ, I did challenge God. And it was because of this meeting that I challenged God. Because, you know, when you finally enter into this relationship with Jesus, and people, if I wasn't speaking my testimony here, that I only have a short time left, I could speak to you the rest of the day about a relationship with Jesus. When you cut to the chase, when you get to the bottom line, this entire life is about a relationship with Jesus. Let me tell you, let me save you some time. Don't worry about all the rules and regulations. You invite Jesus into your heart. You establish this relationship. You continue to develop it, and everything will flow from there. He turns you from the inside out differently. That's it. Because remember this too. I'm going to tell every one of you what your goal is in life. You know what it is? Your goal is to get to heaven. That's it. To get to heaven. Who you bring along with you fulfilling this purpose in life that God has for you, that's another thing. But your goal is to get to heaven, and the way you do that is through Jesus Christ. Okay? So when I started to get into that relationship, things started to become clear for me. Now I get it, God. Now I know why you put this person in my life. Now I know why you gave me this great joy, why you allowed me, not caused me. God does not cause us to go through struggles. He allows it. We live in the world. He allows it. You're using all of these instances, all of these circumstances to prepare me for what my purpose is in life. And you know what? The 20 years I spent on the street, God didn't want me in that life. But you know how much I learned through that life that taught me, okay, that prepared me for what was going to happen later on? Remember, what the enemy meant for evil and bad, God will turn around and use for his good. So for those of you that are struggling, this message is for you. You've had a drug problem, you're an alcoholic, you had a gambling problem, you abused your family, you were a thief, all that stuff. When you clean up your act, God will use everything you learn to fulfill his purpose. Now, for those of you that doubt that, I have a question. If God didn't use sinful people and sinful experiences to fulfill his purposes in life, who would he have to use? The answer is nobody. So don't ever let your past be a deterrent for what God will use it and clean it up for and fulfill something in the future.